The small research ship Endeavour drifted slowly through the outer edges of the solar system. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, watching the star-filled darkness through the main view screen. Her crew of 12 worked quietly at their stations, running routine scans and collecting data about cosmic radiation patterns. "Captain," called out Lieutenant James Park from the sensor station. "I'm picking up something unusual. Large energy signature approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri." Elena moved to his station and looked at the readings. The energy pattern was unlike anything in their databases. It was massive, clearly artificial, and moving toward them at incredible speed. "Time to intercept?" she asked. "Approximately 4 hours at current velocity," Park replied. Elena considered their options. The Endeavour was a science vessel, not a warship. They had basic defensive systems, but nothing that could handle a serious threat. However, running away might be seen as hostile. Sometimes the best defense was showing peaceful intentions. "Prepare a standard first contact package," she ordered. "Mathematics, physics, basic cultural information. If this is what I think it is, we want to make a good first impression." 3 hours and 47 minutes later, the alien ship appeared on their screens. It was beautiful in a way that took Elena's breath away. The vessel looked like a crystal sculpture that had been shaped by wind and water. Smooth curves flowed from one end to the other, and the hull seemed to shimmer with its own internal light. "They're scanning us," reported Park. "Very gentle probes, nothing invasive." Elena nodded. "Open a channel on all frequencies. Let's see if they want to talk." The response came immediately. Mathematical sequences appeared on their communication screen, followed by simple diagrams. Elena smiled. It was exactly what humans would have done in the same situation. Start with universal concepts, then build toward language. Dr. Sarah Kim, their linguistics expert, worked furiously at her station. "Captain, I think I can establish basic communication within an hour. They're using prime numbers and geometric shapes. Very logical approach." "Do it," Elena said, "and make sure they know we're not a threat." The process was slow, but fascinating. The aliens, who called themselves the Zephyrian Collective, were clearly more advanced than humans. Their ship was 3 times the size of the Endeavour and used technology that human scientists could only dream about. But they seemed genuinely curious about humanity rather than threatening. Ambassador Cathara, the Zephyrian leader, appeared on their main screen after 6 hours of careful communication building. The alien was tall and graceful, with blue-green skin that seemed to shift color with emotion. Large, dark eyes dominated a face that was both alien and somehow familiar. When Cathara spoke through their translation system, the voice was musical and warm. "Greetings, humans of the vessel Endeavour. We are pleased to make peaceful contact with your species. We have traveled far to meet you, following signals from your world." Elena felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervousness. "Welcome to our solar system, Ambassador Cathara. I am Captain Elena Vasquez. We are honored by your visit. We have many questions about your people," Cathara continued. "We represent a confederation of peaceful worlds. We seek to learn about other intelligent species and share knowledge for mutual benefit." Over the following days, the 2 ships remained close together as their crews began an amazing exchange of information. The Zephyrians shared star charts showing dozens of inhabited worlds, all part of their peaceful confederation. They had been exploring and making contact with other species for thousands of years. In return, humans shared their history, art, music, and scientific discoveries. The Zephyrians were particularly interested in human creativity and what they called chaotic innovation. They admired how humans could find unexpected solutions to problems. "Your species thinks in ways we do not," Cathara explained during one of their daily conversations. "You see patterns where we see only randomness. You find opportunity where we see only challenge." Elena found herself genuinely liking the alien ambassador. Cathara was curious, intelligent, and seemed to have a good sense of humor. The Zephyrian made jokes about the differences between their species and asked thoughtful questions about human culture. "Tell me about human conflict," Cathara said one day. "We have studied your historical transmissions. Your species seems to have experienced much warfare." Elena chose her words carefully. "Yes, we have had conflicts, but we've learned from them. Most of humanity now works together. We've moved beyond our old tribal ways." Cathara nodded thoughtfully. "This is good. Violence serves no purpose when beings can communicate and cooperate. We believe your species would be valuable members of our confederation." The idea was exciting. Access to advanced alien technology, contact with dozens of other species, and peace among the stars. It seemed too good to be true. During the second week, more Zephyrian ships arrived. They called it a diplomatic flotilla, but Elena noticed they were all civilian vessels. Science ships, cultural exchange vessels, and what looked like mobile universities. No warships, no weapons platforms, nothing military. Your Confederation has no military vessels? Elena asked during one conversation. Cathara looked puzzled by the question. Why would we need such things? When species choose cooperation over conflict, weapons become unnecessary. We have not built a warship in over 1,000 years. Elena nodded and smiled, but something nagged at her. In all of human history, peace had always been maintained by the threat of force. Even on modern Earth, peacekeeping fleets patrolled the space lanes. How had the Zephyrians managed to avoid conflict entirely? Have you never encountered hostile species? She asked. A few times, Cathara admitted. But we simply avoid them. The galaxy is vast. There is room for all types of beings. Elena wondered what happened when hostile species didn't want to be avoided. What if they followed the Zephyrians home? What if they demanded territory or resources? But she kept these thoughts to herself. The cultural exchanges continued to go well. Human musicians played concerts for Zephyrian audiences via video link. Zephyrian artists created beautiful holographic sculptures that told stories of their world. Scientists from both species shared theories about physics and biology. Dr. Kim worked closely with Zephyrian linguists to improve their translation systems. They're remarkable, Captain, she reported. Their language has concepts we don't even have words for. They think in terms of harmony and balance in ways that go far beyond anything in human culture. Are they hiding anything? Elena asked quietly. Kim looked surprised. I don't think so. They seem completely open, maybe too open. They've shared technology that could revolutionize human civilization. Fusion power, faster-than-light communication, medical techniques that could extend human life by centuries. They're not holding anything back. That was what worried Elena. In her experience, everyone held something back during first contact. Even humans meeting other human cultures were more cautious than the Zephyrians were being. But the days passed, peacefully. The Zephyrians continued to be friendly, open, and genuinely interested in building a relationship with humanity. Elena began to think that maybe her suspicions were just the result of too many years dealing with human politics and military paranoia. Perhaps there really were species in the galaxy that had evolved beyond the need for conflict. Perhaps the Zephyrians had found a better way to live. As the third week of contact began, Elena started to relax and enjoy the experience. First contact with an alien species was proceeding better than anyone had dared to hope. She had no idea that 12 human warships hung invisible in the space around them, their crews watching every moment of the peaceful exchange. 3 weeks into the cultural exchange, Ambassador Cathara began to notice small things that didn't make sense. The human ship Endeavour always maintained the same position relative to 3 specific points in space. When Cathara asked Captain Vasquez about it, the human woman explained it as standard navigation protocol. But the Zephyrian had traveled among many species, and no one else followed such rigid positioning rules. During their daily conversations, Cathara also noticed how carefully the humans spoke about certain topics. When asked about Earth's population, Captain Vasquez gave a number that seemed low for a planet that had achieved space travel. When asked about human industrial capacity, the answers were vague and general. How many ships does Earth have? Cathara asked one day. Oh, quite a few, Vasquez replied with a smile. We've been exploring space for several decades now. Lots of research vessels, cargo ships, colony transports, and military vessels? Some, Vasquez said, her smile becoming slightly forced. We maintain a small defensive fleet, nothing like what more aggressive species might have. Cathara nodded, but something in the human's tone suggested she was being careful with her words. The Zephyrian ambassador had dealt with many species during first contact situations, and humans seemed unusually controlled in their responses. Lieutenant Park, the young human sensor officer, was less careful with his words. During a casual conversation about stellar navigation, he mentioned how Fleet Command had updated their star charts based on Zephyrian data. Captain Vasquez immediately stepped in to explain that Fleet Command was just their name for Earth's space traffic control center. But Cathara knew military terminology when he heard it. No civilian space agency called itself Fleet Command. The Zephyrian science officer, Yelnara, reported another oddity during their weekly briefing. Ambassador, our sensors keep detecting unusual energy patterns in the space around us. Brief flickers, like something is there and then not there. What kind of patterns? Cathara asked. Hard to say. They're very faint and only last for microseconds. Could be natural phenomena, but the pattern seems too regular, almost like... She paused, thinking. Like engine signatures, but from ships we cannot see. Cathara felt a chill of unease. Are you saying there might be cloaked vessels nearby? I don't know, Yelnara admitted. Our sensors show nothing solid, but the energy patterns are there, and they're moving in formation. On the 4th week, a new human arrived on the Endeavor. Dr. Marcus Chen introduced himself as a cultural specialist from Earth. He was young, enthusiastic, and seemed genuinely excited about meeting aliens. During a formal dinner, he spoke freely about human history and culture. You should see our war museums, he said, talking about human historical sites. We have some incredible displays of ancient military technology. Tanks, aircraft, nuclear, submarines, even some of the early orbital defense platforms. Captain Vasquez quickly changed the subject, but Cathara caught the reference to orbital defense platforms. That suggested a level of military preparation that didn't match what the humans had been telling them. Later that evening, Cathara called a private meeting with his senior staff aboard the Zephyrian flagship. I believe the humans are not being completely honest with us, he said. In what way? Asked Commander Thelos, his military advisor. They claim to be a peaceful species with minimal military capabilities, but I'm detecting signs of much more extensive military preparation. References to fleet commands, orbital defense platforms, and these mysterious energy signatures our sensors are picking up. Yelnara nodded. The energy patterns have been getting stronger. I'm now detecting at least 8 distinct sources, all maintaining formation around our position. Could they be cloaked ships? Thelos asked. It's possible, the science officer replied. But if so, they're using technology we can't penetrate with passive scans. Cathara considered their options. The Zephyrian Collective had encountered deceptive species before, though rarely. Most civilizations that achieved space travel had moved beyond such primitive behaviors. But humans were young, and their history showed a long tradition of warfare and conflict. What should we do? Thelos asked. We continue the diplomatic process, Cathara decided, but we remain alert. If humans are hiding military assets, we need to understand why. Meanwhile, aboard the cloaked dreadnought Retribution, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the diplomatic proceedings with growing concern. Her intelligence officers had been monitoring Zephyrian communications, and they were getting suspicious. They're starting to ask the right questions, reported Commander Williams, her intelligence chief. Their science officer has detected our engine signatures, and their ambassador is noting inconsistencies in our cover story. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. 12 human warships surrounded the diplomatic zone, all invisible to normal sensors. The Retribution alone carried enough firepower to destroy the entire Zephyrian flotilla in seconds. The other ships were smaller but equally advanced. How much longer can we maintain the deception? She asked. Hard to say. Captain Vasquez is doing her best, but the Zephyrians are smart. They'll figure it out eventually. Chen nodded. The plan had always been risky. Present humanity as peaceful and weak during first contact, while keeping overwhelming force hidden nearby. If the aliens proved hostile, they could be destroyed before they could warn their homeworld. If they proved peaceful, the military assets could remain hidden indefinitely, but the Zephyrians were more perceptive than expected. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. The Zephyrian flagship is powering up their active sensors. Chen felt her stomach tighten. Active sensors were much more powerful than passive ones. If the Zephyrians conducted a full-spectrum scan, they would detect every human ship in the area. Are they preparing to scan us? She asked. Unknown. Their sensor array is warming up, but they haven't begun scanning yet. On the Endeavor, Captain Vasquez received a priority message from Admiral Chen. Zephyrians may be preparing active scans. Maintain cover story at all costs. Do not let them scan the area. Vasquez felt sweat break out on her forehead. How could she stop an alien ship from scanning space without revealing that humans had something to hide? She immediately contacted Ambassador Cathara. Ambassador, our sensors are detecting unusual energy buildup on your flagship. Is everything all right? Quite all right, Captain, Cathara replied smoothly. We are simply conducting routine maintenance on our sensor systems. Nothing to concern yourself with. But Vasquez could see the lie in the aliens' large dark eyes. They suspected something. Back on the Retribution, Admiral Chen made a difficult decision. Prepare all ships for emergency decloak, she ordered. If they scan us and detect our presence, we'll have seconds to respond before they can transmit a warning to their homeworld. Yes, Admiral, came the reply from 12 different ships. Chen stared at the tactical display, watching the energy levels climb on the Zephyrian flagship. Everything humanity had worked for during first contact hung in the balance. The peaceful exchange of cultures, the promise of joining a galactic confederation, the hope for a future without conflict, all of it could disappear in the next few minutes. But Admiral Chen was prepared for that possibility. She had been preparing for it since the moment the Zephyrian ships first appeared on human sensors. The question was, were the Zephyrians ready for what humanity had been hiding in the darkness between the stars? Ambassador Cathara decided to test human intentions directly. During their next diplomatic meeting, he presented Captain Vasquez with what he called a theoretical scenario. "Captain, I have a question about human philosophy," Cathara said, his voice carefully neutral. "Imagine your people discovered a species that possessed valuable resources, rare minerals perhaps, or useful technology, but this species had inferior military capabilities compared to humans. What would your people do?" Captain Vasquez felt her heart rate increase. The question was clearly not theoretical. "We would approach them peacefully," she said. "Offer fair trade, cultural exchange, mutual benefit for both species. Even if they refused to trade," Cathara pressed, "even if they wanted to keep their resources for themselves?" "Then we would respect their wishes," Vasquez replied. "Every species has the right to control their own destiny." Cathara nodded, slowly. "And if these resources were something your people desperately needed, something that could save human lives or advance your civilization significantly?" Vasquez chose her words carefully. "We would try to find alternatives, develop our own technology, look elsewhere for what we needed. We wouldn't force another species to give us anything." The ambassador seemed satisfied with her answer, but Vasquez could see doubt in his large, dark eyes. She had told him the truth as she saw it, but she knew that human history was full of examples where resources had been taken by force from weaker peoples. What Cathara didn't know was that the Zephyrians themselves might represent exactly the kind of valuable resources he was asking about. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. Their fusion power systems, faster-than-light communication, medical advances, any one of those technologies could revolutionize human civilization. After the meeting ended, Cathara returned to his ship and called an emergency conference with his senior staff. "I believe we are being tested," he announced. "The humans are evaluating us, just as we are evaluating them." "What kind of test?" asked Commander Thelos. "I think they are trying to determine if we represent a threat or an opportunity," Cathara explained. "Their responses to my questions about resources and weaker species were too perfect, too rehearsed." Science Officer Yelnara looked up from her sensor readings. "Ambassador, I've been analyzing those energy signatures we've been detecting. The patterns are definitely artificial, and they're getting stronger." "Stronger how?" "More distinct. Whatever is out there is getting closer, or it's powering up systems that were previously dormant." Cathara felt a growing sense of unease. Everything about this first contact was wrong. The humans were too careful, too controlled. Their ship was too perfectly positioned. Their answers were too diplomatic. "Yelnara, I want you to prepare an active sensor sweep of the entire area around our position," he ordered. "Ambassador," Commander Thelos said carefully, "such a scan might be seen as aggressive. If the humans are hiding something revealing, it could escalate the situation." "If they are hiding something, we need to know what it is," Cathara replied firmly. "We represent 6 billion Zephyrians across 12 worlds. I will not lead them into a trap because I was too polite to ask hard questions." Unknown to the Zephyrians, every word of their conversation was being monitored by human intelligence systems. Advanced translation software developed over 3 weeks of cultural exchange allowed Admiral Chen's team to understand Zephyrian communications in real time. "They're planning an active scan," Commander Williams reported. "The ambassador has ordered a full sweep of our position." Admiral Chen felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. 12 human warships hung invisible in space, their crews waiting for orders. One word from her could start the first interstellar war in human history. "Time until they begin scanning?" she asked. "Estimate 15 minutes. Their sensor array takes time to power up safely." Chen opened a priority channel to Captain Vasquez aboard the Endeavor. "Elena, you need to convince them not to scan this area." "How?" Vasquez replied. "If I object too strongly, they'll know. We're hiding something." "Figure it out. You have 14 minutes." Vasquez thought quickly, then opened a channel to the Zephyrian flagship. "Ambassador Cathara, our sensors are detecting energy buildup in your active scanning array. Before you proceed, I should warn you that we've detected some unusual spatial phenomena in this area." "What kind of phenomena?" Cathara asked. "Gravitational anomalies." Nothing dangerous, but they might interfere with your sensor readings. We've been avoiding active scans ourselves to prevent equipment damage. It was a lie, but a believable one. Cathara considered the warning carefully. Our equipment is quite robust, he said finally. I think we can handle any anomalies. Vasquez felt panic rising in her throat. Ambassador, I must strongly advise against an active scan at this time. The spatial distortions could cause feedback that might damage your systems. Now Cathara was certain something was wrong. No human would care that much about alien equipment unless they had their own reasons for preventing a scan. Captain Vasquez, he said formally, are you ordering us not to scan this area? The question hung in space between them. If Vasquez said yes, she would be admitting that humans had something to hide. If she said no, the Zephyrians would discover the hidden fleet. Of course not, she said finally. I'm simply expressing concern for your safety. You're free to do whatever you think is best. But her tone made it clear that she desperately wanted him to choose differently. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral. Chen watched the conversation with growing tension. Her weapons officers had target locks on every Zephyrian ship. Her communications team was ready to jam any transmissions to the Zephyrian homeworld. Her fleet was prepared for war, but she hoped it wouldn't come to that. All ships prepare for emergency decloak, she ordered. If they complete their scan and detect us, we may have only seconds to respond before they can warn their people. 12 human captains acknowledged the order. Weapons systems powered up. Targeting computers calculated firing solutions. Marines prepared for possible boarding actions. On the Zephyrian flagship, Yelnara completed her preparations. Ambassador, active sensors are ready. Shall I begin the scan? Cathara looked at the image of Captain Vasquez on his main screen. The human woman was trying to hide her fear, but he could see the tension in her posture, the worry in her eyes. Proceed with the scan, he ordered. Beginning active sensor sweep in 10 seconds, Yelnara announced. Aboard the Endeavor, Captain. Vasquez closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Admiral Chen gripped the arms of her command chair and prepared to make the hardest decision of her career. The scan began. The active sensor pulse from the Zephyrian flagship swept outward like an invisible wave. For 3 seconds, space seemed empty except for the 2 ships that everyone could see. Then, Science Officer Yelnara's instruments exploded with data. Ambassador! She called out, her voice tight with shock. I'm reading multiple contacts. Large vessels all around our position. The sensor readings showed the impossible. 12 massive objects hung in space where moments before there had been nothing. Ships larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, bristling with weapon systems that the computer couldn't fully analyze. How many? Cathara demanded, his calm, diplomatic mask finally cracking. 12 confirmed contacts. No, wait, the largest one is directly above us. It's enormous. Aboard the human dreadnought Retribution, alarms began screaming. The Zephyrian scan had penetrated their cloaking systems and revealed their position. All ships report detection, Commander Williams announced. The aliens know we're here. Admiral Chen had perhaps 10 seconds before the Zephyrians could transmit a warning to their homeworld. 10 seconds to decide between war and revelation. She made her choice. All ships, emergency decloak, full display formation. Show them what they're dealing with. Around the diplomatic zone, space itself seemed to tear open as 12 human warships materialized. The Retribution appeared first, its massive bulk dwarfing the Zephyrian flagship. Nearly 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons, it was a monument to human military engineering. 11 smaller ships followed, taking positions in a perfect sphere around the alien vessels. Destroyers, cruisers, and frigates, each one more heavily armed than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. On the Zephyrian flagship, panic erupted across the bridge. Weapons signatures are off the scale, Yelnara reported. The largest ship alone has more firepower than our entire home defense fleet. Are they targeting us? Commander Thelos demanded. Negative. All weapons are powered but not locked onto our position. Ambassador Cathara stared at the tactical display in horror. The humans had been lying from the very beginning. This wasn't a peaceful first contact. It was a carefully planned military operation. Communications, he ordered. Prepare an emergency transmission to the homeworld. Tell them. Zephyrian flagship. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, a new voice interrupted. Please hold all communications until we can speak directly. It wasn't a request. On the human research vessel Endeavor, Captain. Vasquez felt her knees go weak with relief. The secret was out, but at least no one was shooting yet. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen of the Zephyrian flagship. She was a stern-looking woman in her 50s, wearing a military uniform that radiated authority. Behind her, the bridge of the Retribution hummed with activity as dozens of officers monitored weapons and defense systems. Ambassador Cathara, Chen said formally, I apologize for the deception, but I think we need to have a more honest conversation about humanity and our place in your Galactic Confederation. Cathara found his voice, though it shook slightly. You have been lying to us from the beginning. This entire first contact has been a military operation disguised as peaceful diplomacy. Not disguised, Chen corrected. Protected. Captain Vasquez and her crew have been completely honest about human culture, history, and intentions. They simply weren't told about the escort fleet. Escort fleet. Cathara's voice rose. You call this an escort? These are warships. You could destroy our entire flotilla in seconds. Yes, Chen agreed calmly. We could, but we haven't, and we won't, unless you force us to. The blunt admission sent chills through the Zephyrian crew. They were dealing with a species that could commit genocide and spoke about it as casually as discussing the weather. What do you want from us? Cathara asked. The same thing we've wanted all along, Chen replied. Peace, trade, cultural exchange, membership in your confederation. The only difference is that now you know we're not helpless. Commander Thelos leaned close to his ambassador. We should warn the homeworld immediately. These humans are clearly aggressive and dangerous. But Cathara was thinking more carefully. Admiral Chen, why are you revealing your fleet now? You could have kept it hidden. Because you were about to discover it anyway, Chen said. And because I prefer honesty when possible. Your scan would have detected our ships whether we wanted it to or not. This way we can control the conversation. Control, Cathara repeated. Yes, that seems important to humans. Chen's expression didn't change. Control is important to any species that wants to survive, Ambassador. The question is how you use it. On the Retribution's bridge, Commander Williams monitored Zephyrian communications. Admiral, they're still preparing to transmit to their homeworld. I know, Chen replied. Let them. Cathara was startled. You're not going to stop us from warning our people? Why would I? Chen asked. Your people should know that humanity exists and that we're interested in peaceful relations. They should also know that we're capable of defending ourselves if those peaceful relations are rejected. The ambassador stared at the human admiral, trying to understand her logic. Every instinct told him that these humans were dangerous predators who had been hunting his people from the moment they arrived. But if that were true, why hadn't they attacked already? You're not what we expected, he said finally. I imagine. Not, Chen agreed. Your confederation appears to consist of species that evolved beyond conflict naturally. Humanity took a different path. We learned to control our violent impulses through preparation and deterrence. And if we reject your application to join the Confederation? Chen was quiet for a moment. Then you reject it. We'll be disappointed, but we won't force the issue. There are other species in the galaxy, other potential allies. You wouldn't. Attack us for refusing? Ambassador, Chen said patiently, if we wanted to conquer your worlds, we would have done it already. We've had complete intelligence on your star systems for 6 months. We know your fleet strengths, your planetary defenses, your industrial capacity. If we were predators, your people would already be slaves. The casual mention of months of surveillance sent another chill through the Zephyrian crew. These humans had been watching them long before first contact, learning their weaknesses, planning for every possibility. 6 months? Cathara asked. Weekly. Standard procedure, Chen explained. We study any species before making contact. We need to know if they're hostile, peaceful, or something in between. Your people are clearly peaceful, which is why we approached you diplomatically instead of with a battle fleet. Science Officer Yelnara looked up from her instruments. Ambassador, I'm detecting weapons signatures unlike anything in our databases. These ships could devastate entire continents. Chen nodded. Probably, but we don't devastate continents anymore, just like we don't burn cities or slaughter civilians. We've learned better ways to resolve conflicts. By overwhelming your enemies. With superior force? Cathara asked. By being so overwhelmingly superior that enemies choose not to fight, Chen corrected. There's a difference. The distinction was lost on most of the Zephyrian crew, but Cathara was beginning to understand. These humans had turned warfare into an art form, then used that art to avoid wars entirely. It was terrifying and brilliant at the same time. Admiral Chen leaned back in her command chair, studying the alien ambassador through the communication link. Cathara looked shaken, but was clearly thinking hard about everything he had learned. Ambassador, Chen said calmly, I want to show you something. Computer, display tactical file Sigma 7. A holographic star map appeared between them, showing a section of space about 50 light-years from Earth. Red markers indicated hostile alien territories. 3 years ago, humanity encountered our first aggressive alien species, Chen explained. They called themselves the Haktar Empire. They believed that any species weak enough to be conquered deserved to be slaves. The display zoomed in on a particular system. They attacked our colony on Kepler 442b without warning, killed 30,000 civilians in the first hour. Cathara stared at the data in horror. The Zephyrian collective had never encountered such brutality between spacefaring species. What did you do? He asked. We did what humans do when our people are murdered, Chen replied simply. We went to war. The display showed the movement of human fleets, the destruction of Haktar military bases, the systematic dismantling of their empire over 18 months of fighting. We could have exterminated them entirely, Chen continued. But when their government fell and their survivors asked for mercy, we gave it to them. The remaining Haktar worlds are now peaceful trade partners. You conquered them? Cathara asked. We defeated them. There's a difference. Conquest means taking their territory and enslaving their people. Defeat means stopping their ability to harm others. A new star map appeared showing a different region of space. 2 years ago, we encountered the Void Syndicate. Pirates and raiders who had been terrorizing this entire sector for decades. They thought humanity would be easy prey. The display showed dozens of human ships destroyed in hit-and-run attacks, cargo vessels captured, crew members tortured and killed. The Syndicate made the mistake of attacking civilian targets, Chen said, her voice growing cold. They raided a passenger liner carrying colonists to New Geneva, killed everyone aboard, including children. Cathara could see where this was leading. You hunted them down. Every last ship, Chen confirmed. The Void Syndicate no longer exists. But we offered amnesty to any pirate who surrendered and agreed to work for legitimate shipping companies instead. About half of them took the deal. A third map appeared, showing an area near Zephyrian space. 6 months ago, we detected the Sectar hegemony moving toward your confederation. They're a militant species that believes other aliens should be exterminated or enslaved. Our intelligence indicates they were planning to attack your worlds within the year. Cathara's eyes widened. The collective had no idea they were under threat. Where are they now? He asked. Gone, Chen said simply. We couldn't risk them attacking you before we had a chance to make contact and establish diplomatic relations, so we discouraged them from continuing their expansion in this direction. The casual way she said it made Cathara realize that an entire alien empire had been destroyed or driven off to protect people they had never met. You fought a war to protect us, before we even knew you existed? We fought to protect the principle of peaceful coexistence, Chen corrected. Your confederation represents something rare in the galaxy, a group of species that have learned to live together without violence. That's worth protecting. Commander Williams looked up from his station. Admiral, the Sectar survivors have sent another message asking for permission to settle in the Outer Rim territories. Granted, Chen replied, as long as they maintain peaceful behavior. Cathara was struggling to understand this species that could destroy empires as easily as swatting insects, but chose instead to offer mercy and second chances. How many hostile species have you encountered? He asked. 17 so far, Chen replied. We've had to fight 12 of them. 5 chose to negotiate once they realized what they were dealing with. And the 12 you fought? 3 were completely destroyed because they refused to surrender and continued committing atrocities. 9 were defeated, and their survivors offered the chance to rebuild as peaceful societies. 8 of the 9 accepted. The 9th, we're still working on them. The scale of human military operations was staggering. In just a few years, humanity had fought more wars than the Zephyrian collective had seen in centuries. Why? Cathara asked. Why do you fight so many battles? Chen was quiet for a moment. Because someone has to, she said finally. Your confederation has been able to remain peaceful because you've been lucky. You've never encountered truly hostile species. But they're out there, Ambassador. The galaxy is full of predators who see peaceful civilizations as easy prey. She gestured to the tactical displays. Humanity serves as a buffer between the peaceful species and the violent ones. We fight the wars so that others don't have to. But why take that burden on yourselves? Chen smiled, and for the first time, she looked less like a military commander, and more like a human being. Because we're good at it, and because we know what it's like to live in a world where violence is always possible. We don't want other species to experience that. Science Officer Yel Nara spoke up from her station. Ambassador, I'm analyzing the human weapons signatures. These ships could protect our entire confederation from any conceivable threat. Chen nodded. That's the idea. If the collective accepts humanity as a member, you would gain access to our military protection. In return, we'd like access to your technology, your knowledge, and your philosophy of peaceful coexistence. You want to learn how to be peaceful? Cathara asked, surprised. We want to learn how to build a galaxy where peace is possible, Chen replied. Humans are good at ending conflicts, but you're good at preventing them. Together, we could create something better than either of our species could manage alone. Cathara looked around his bridge at his crew. They all looked frightened, overwhelmed, and uncertain. But they also looked thoughtful. Admiral Chen, he said slowly, your species terrifies us. Your casual attitude toward warfare, your willingness to destroy entire civilizations, your massive military capabilities, everything about humanity screams danger, Chen nodded. I understand. But, Cathara continued, you've had the power to conquer us from the beginning, and instead you chose diplomacy. You fought wars to protect species you've never met. You've shown mercy to enemies who showed you none. That's what peace looks like when it's backed by strength, Chen explained. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because we can, and because that ability gives us the choice not to fight. Cathara made his decision. I will recommend to the Collective Council that humanity be granted membership in our confederation, but there will be conditions. Such as, you will be our military arm, but you will be bound by our ethical principles. No conquest, no enslavement, no genocide. You defend the peaceful, offer mercy to the defeated, and always try diplomacy before warfare. Chen smiled. Those are the same principles we already follow, Ambassador. We would be honored to serve as guardians of the collective. And in return, we will share our technology, our knowledge, and our philosophy of peace. Perhaps together we can build a galaxy where your military skills become unnecessary. That, Chen said, would be the greatest victory of all. As the two species began planning their formal alliance, Ambassador Cathara reflected on what he had learned. Humanity was indeed terrifying in their capacity for violence, but they were more terrifying in their capacity for restraint. They had found a species that could destroy worlds, but chose instead to protect them. Warriors who fought, not for conquest, but for peace. Predators who had evolved into guardians. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in his life, Cathara thought that might be a good thing. In the vast darkness between stars, 12 human warships maintained their protective formation around the growing alliance between species. Silent guardians watching, over the hope of lasting peace. They would wait as long as necessary. Humanity had learned patience along with power, and they had learned that sometimes the greatest strength was in choosing not to use it at all.